Hello friends, my name is Annoying.Artist, and today we are diving back into the world of Invader Zim. If you're an Invader Zim fan like myself, you know that Nickelodeon unfortunately canceled the show before its second season could be finished, mostly due to poor ratings among its target audience as well as budgetary issues. I mean, at the time, Invader Zim was the most expensive show on Nick. Some people like to claim that Dark Harvest was the actual reason for the show's cancellation, but from what I could find, that episode was still airing right up until the show was taken completely off the air. The show stopped airing sometime in 2006, and then in 2011, the pilot was aired for the first time, and sometime in 2010, the series was on reruns, and discussion of a revival was talked about, but due to budgetary issues once again, it wasn't enough for the crew to really put their hearts into the project. Then in 2019, we got Enter the Florpus, which is wonderful. I don't care what anyone says. I freaking love that movie. Anyways, today we will be discussing the lost episodes of Invader Zim and why there are so many freaking lost episodes of this show that there's still recordings of. Based on my personal research, there's around 11 lost episodes in total, though that number is not completely exact and is a bit foggy. IMDb lists only 7 episodes, but the main Wikipedia lists about 17. Today we're just going to focus on the 7 that are listed on IMDb because, well, I don't have the mental capacity to go searching for more lost episodes. If you guys like this, maybe we can do a part 2 and see what we can find about the others. The first episode that IMDb lists is 10 Minutes to Doom. I would argue that this is probably the most well-known lost episode. In it, Dib convinces a bully, I think it's supposed to be Smacky, the kid from Dark Harvest, but I could be wrong, to hit Zim with a dodgeball, causing his pack to fall off. Dib then steals Zim's pack, intending to prove to his dad that Zim is an alien, while Zim only has 10 minutes to live. Thankfully, Gaz shows up and punches Dib, and then Zim gets back his pack just in time. This episode is very popular, I believe, because it addresses a lot of big questions about Zim's pack and what it really is. People have definitely been curious about Zim's pack because it's so interesting. You can find reanimated versions of this episode on YouTube with the complete original audio. I think there's like 1 or 2. I'm gonna try and link all of these that I can find down in the description below. We'll see how well I do though. I don't have a whole lot to say about this episode. I mean, it's fine. It's kind of what I would expect from an episode like this. This plot was also re-included in one of the comics, I believe, with a Dib that had actually been taken over by the pack kind of successfully. I could be wrong, I haven't read all of the comics yet, so someone please correct me in the comments. The second episode listed is Invader Poochie, I believe is how you say his name. To throw off his classmates' suspicion that he's an alien, Zim makes it seem like Poochie is the real Urkin invader, with Zim just being a decoy. Zim even plants Urkin technology in Poochie's room to convince Dib. Zim watches the chaos from his ship, but panics when he realizes Poochie has one of his super weapons. He stops Poochie just before he wreaks havoc on what he thinks is a new video game. After everything, Dib ends up in jail, and the cops eat Poochie's dinner. I don't really have much to say about this episode. It's kind of just fine. That's a running theme with these, by the way. The third episode listed is Mopiness of Doom, aka the Zader breakup episode. This one is very popular. I would argue the most popular lost episode because of the Soapy Waffles animation and the script reading up on YouTube. We also know a lot more about exactly how this episode was supposed to look. Unlike the others where it's a bit foggy, this one, it's very clear. I think that it's a bit strange that this episode is seemingly so polished, considering Invader Poochie was the next one that was supposed to come out. But Mopiness of Doom starts with Dib chasing Zim back to his base, trying to subdue the alien with a supernatural amulet that, of course, doesn't work. Discouraged, Dib asks his father if he thinks that he's wasting his time. Dib decides to pursue real science and start working with his father, causing Zim to spiral into a depression without his enemy to fight. By the end, Dib realizes that real science is way too boring and returns to Zim's house, where they exchange some cute banter before the episode ends. This one is my personal favorite of the lost episodes. It's just a really cute episode, and we got a reference to it in Enter the Florpus. Unless Zim is just that prone to depressive episodes. If so, fair enough. Me too, King. The fourth episode listed is Nubs of Doom. The title makes it sound like it's gonna be about nipples, but whatever. Zim and Gur are dressed as clowns, but Gur is making a massive mess, of course, getting them thrown out of the little mall festival thing that they're at. Dib is also there and points out that Gur isn't very good, so Zim creates Mini Moose. Zim tells Gur never to touch Mini Moose, then runs tests, accidentally causing a lot of chaos that Mini Moose handles flawlessly. Zim then takes Mini Moose on a mission as a final test, but Mini Moose embarrasses Zim in front of Dib. In the end, Zim lets Gur play with Mini Moose, who accidentally activates a doomsday device in Mini Moose on Zim. The episode ends with Zim relaxing on the couch while Gur plays with Mini Moose. This episode is fine, it's not particularly remarkable, but it does introduce Mini Moose, so that's cool. I was just kind of bored watching this episode, if I'm honest. The 5th episode listed is Return of Keith. It's spelled Keith, but I think it's still pronounced Keith. It's unclear. I'm just gonna say Keith. Like how I just said Poochie. Keith, Zim's friend from Bestest Friends, returns in this episode. Keith talks to Dib about how lucky he is to be friends with Zim and that he misses being friends with Zim himself. Dib tries to trick Keith into putting a brain rotter on Zim's head, but it backfires when Zim puts it on Dib instead. Dib snaps at Keith, saying that him and Zim aren't friends, leading to Keith deciding to make Zim and Dib friends so that they can all be best friends. This annoys Zim and Dib so much that they team up to get rid of Keith again. They stage a hangout and make Keith explode with happiness when he sees them hug. Same, honestly. I think this episode is really cute, and I love that they brought back Keith. I think he's really underutilized in the original series, so it's always fun to see him. The 6th episode listed is Robot Parents Gone Wild. In this episode, a power surge in Zim's base causes his robot parents to start acting like real parents. Zim, being his usual bratty self, is put into a box. The robot dad goes to find a new son and returns with a wild animal, a monkey badger hybrid named Dinky that starts destroying the base. Zim is kicked out of the house and ends up hanging out with a hobo for a bit. Zim disguises himself as Dinky to try and get his robot parents to hug him so he can reset them. He succeeds, but is captured by the zoo, which mistake him for Dinky. This episode is really kinda just meh. I like the idea of Zim having to deal with parents, since he tends to be such a brat, and I really think they could have set up a funny, like, Jimmy Neutron or Dexter's Lab type scenario where Zim has to hide his more obviously Irken tech from them. But overall, I was kind of disappointed by this plot and how they handled it. I mean, it's fine, but personally, I just wasn't that interested. The last episode listed is Simon Zez Doom. It is spelled weird for some reason. I don't know. Some places listed as says. It's spelled weird. I don't know, man. Zim volunteers to help out at a local orphanage as part of the city's Be a Good Neighbor program. Of course, Dib thinks Zim's up to something and volunteers as well to keep an eye on him. Zim notices that the children will do whatever he says if he says Simon says. Dib, meanwhile, is supposed to be monitoring a baby changing machine but gets distracted by Zim. Zim's Plan B causes the orphans to rampage through the city, so Dib uses a flying bee suit to command each orphan not to listen to Zim. While Dib is busy, the baby changer nearly melts down, but Mr. Elliot saves the day. As Dib cleans up the mess by hand, Zim reveals that his real plan was to distract Dib and cause a meltdown. However, Zim's ultimate goal was to make Dib clean up by hand and reveals his victory. Dib instructs a monstrous kid to hug them. This episode is really cute and funny, but again, there's not much to say about it. That's kind of the thing with these lost episodes. There's not a lot of material to really dive into, but I still wanted to talk about them because I think it's so interesting that there's just so many lost episodes of this show. There's maybe another episode called The Trial, but this video is long enough, so we'll save that one for next time, yeah? But why are there so many lost episodes of Invader Zim? Well, it was mostly due to the show being canceled before the second season was finished. I couldn't find much information other than that, and it's kind of really frustrating because it seems so strange how there's so many lost episodes that have full audios or scripts. Oh well, maybe one day we'll get a revival. I mean, Jonan did say that Florpus wasn't a finale, but I wouldn't get my hopes up. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to hear me talk about the trial next time, feel free to leave me a comment and maybe even subscribe if you want to stick around to see it. I hope you have a wonderful day, everyone. I gotta put my cover on. If I don't put on my cover, then you're gonna hear all the crickets in my house.